It was only a matter of time. She's gone. Through. Finished. Only a matter of time. Before Joy Reid's reign of unhinged rhetoric and intellectual terror, blatant race baiting, and outright lying and falsehoods came crashing down. For years, she was the darling of the radical left's propaganda machine. Oh, they loved her. I think they loved her. At least they told us they loved her. This relentless voice pushing division and misinformation and lies and open hostility and racial arson towards conservatives, towards you, especially President Trump and his supporters, you. But even the far left executives at MSDNC, who have tolerated some of the most unhinged voices in media history, finally had to acknowledge the obvious. Joy Reid was a liability. She had to go. She sucked. Her career was built not on journalistic credibility, but on incendiary statements and anger and bile, vile filth, intellectual filth, designed to provoke outrage, fuel racial animosity, and elevate the worst aspects of identity politics. Oh, yeah. And in 2024 and 2025, as Trump's America First movement surged and the radical left began losing its grip on the mainstream media narrative, Reid's desperation became more ardent, more evident, more obvious than ever. Let's take a look at the final disgraceful chapters of her failed career, shall we? The moments that finally exposed her as nothing more than a leftist hack, unworthy of the platform she was given. In January of 2024, attacking white Christians for supporting Trump, Joy Reid has never been one to hide her contempt for Trump supporters, but she reached a new level of divisiveness in January of 2024 when she lashed out after Trump's dominant victory in the Iowa caucuses. She condemned, quote, white Christians who voted for Trump, absurdly claiming they wanted non-whites to, quote, bow down to them. This wasn't just an attack on Trump voters. It was an attack on the millions of Christians in America who saw Trump as a leader, who fought for religious liberty, defended American values, and stood against the radical left's war on faith. Her comments weren't only inflammatory, but wildly disconnected and out of touch with reality. The America First movement has brought together people of all races, uniting working-class Americans who are tired of the elitist, globalist policies that have devastated their communities. But in Joy Reid's world, oh, no. In Joyless's world, everything is about race. And every conservative is a white supremacist in disguise. Then it was July of 2024. If there was any moment that fully exposed Reid's character, or lack thereof, it was her reaction to the first assassination attempt on President Trump in July 2024. Rather than condemn the violence, rather than acknowledge the seriousness of the situation, she suggested that the attack was simply the consequences of Trump's, quote, promoting political violence. Think about that for a moment. A former president, a leading candidate for re-election, nearly lost his life, nearly had his brains vaporized, interestingly enough, on live TV, due to political extremism, and Joyless Reid's response was essentially, quote, he had it coming. That level of depravity should have been immediately the subject of disqualifying her from ever appearing on television again. If a conservative commentator had said something remotely similar about a Democrat, their career would have been over within hours. But because it was Trump, the radical left barely blinked. And then 2 days later, Joy Reid continued her grotesque comparison, saying that Joe Biden recovering from COVID-19 was, quote, exactly the same thing as Trump surviving an assassination attempt. Think about that. This kind of deranged equivalency is what defined Reid's tenure at MSDNC. And if you think about it, it's comparing political disagreements with acts of violence, painting Trump as some kind of existential evil, dismissing actual threats to democracy when they targeted the wrong side. And then July of 2024, TikTok. Not content with just embarrassing herself on television. No. Reid took her rhetoric to TikTok, where she once again played the race card in the most absurd way possible. She claimed that black voters would look, quote, real weird and lonely if they didn't support Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. Now, this is the type of mentality that the radical left has always used and used for decades, bullying and shaming minority voters into blindly supporting Democrats, even when the Democratic Party has done absolutely nothing to improve their lives. It's the same tactic that led Joe Biden to infamously declare, quote, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. Remember that one? Let that resonate with you, as someone once said. Joy Reid doubled down later stating that she would vote for Biden even if he was in a coma. These were her words. And that voting against Trump was like, quote, keeping Hitler out of the White House. This wasn't political analysis. This wasn't journalism. This was unhinged, vile, dangerous propaganda designed to fearmonger and manipulate voters. Then November of 2024, the Thanksgiving rants and the false claims. As the 2024 election neared, Joy Reid's absolute desperation became even more obvious. After Florida voters rejected a radical abortion measure in November, she claimed the state, the Sunshine State, my home state, was descending into, quote, an extremist right-wing fascist-type government. Those are her words. Because in Joy Reid's world, a state protecting unborn life is the equivalent of totalitarianism. And that same month, she launched yet another bizarre Thanksgiving rant accusing Republicans of, quote, worshiping Trump instead of Jesus, and telling MAGA supporters, that would be you, to make your own Thanksgiving dinner. This kind of elitist sneering attitude toward conservative voters, I guess, perfectly encapsulated why the left was losing ground with the American public and why they ultimately lost. And she wasn't done. In another delusional outburst, she falsely claimed that President Trump was pushing for, quote, reparations for white people. Remember that? And of course, this was a total fabrication, but facts were never Joy Reid's strong suit. Her goal was always the same: divide, lie, and stoke fear. Then January of 2025, attacking border policy. Listen to this. Just when you thought Joy Reid couldn't embarrass herself any further, no. She proved once again that she had absolutely no understanding of how immigration enforcement works. In January of this year, she claimed that ICE and ICE raids under President Trump were nothing more than, quote, performative. This was so asinine that former ICE Director Tom Homan publicly called her dumber than a box of rocks. And honestly, he wasn't wrong, because Joy Reid had spent years peddling the ridiculous idea that enforcing immigration laws was somehow a crime, completely ignoring the chaos caused by Biden's open border policies. She had no real understanding of policy, just an obsession with smearing Trump and his supporters. See, this is the end of an era. This is why Joy Reid had to go. It wasn't just one moment that led to Reid's downfall. It was the cumulative effect of years of lies, inflammatory rhetoric, dangerous rhetoric, and plummeting ratings. That's the bottom line. MSDNC knew they couldn't keep her around forever. Her audience was shrinking. People can't stand her. Her credibility, whatever that was non-existent. And even liberals were tuning and turning her out, I guess. Joy Reid was and is the embodiment of everything wrong with modern leftist media and leftist ideology. Remember that, because the media reflect ideology. She's obsessed with race, is allergic to facts, and totally incapable of engaging with the real concerns of the American people. She thought she could just keep pushing the same tired narratives forever. But the public caught on. They saw through her nonsense. And eventually, so did MSDNC. Her firing is more than just another media shakeup. It's a sign of something bigger. The radical left's grip on the mainstream media is loosening, disappearing. Americans are waking up. They're rejecting this race-obsessed, grievance-fueled politics that joyless Reid built her career on. And as more and more people turn to independent media and alternative voices, the days of figures like Joy Reid dominating the conversation are coming to an end. Goodbye, Joy. Good riddance, Joy. You won't be missed. Now here's a copy of the home game. My friend, I need you to follow me, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and send it to some radical lefty that you know, and make them watch it, and maybe teach them something, and comment as you see fit.